You don't struggle with money, you struggle with rank. You keep calling comfort security and loyalty morality, while predators quietly price you like livestock. You were taught to see money as math, salary, savings, bills. Budget better. That's the children's version. Safe, moral, clean. A story designed for people who will spend their entire lives obeying schedules, not commanding outcomes. Money is not math. Money is hierarchy. A weapon that decides who waits, who chooses, who escapes, and who begs. The reason most people will never understand money is because they keep treating it like a thing: paper, numbers, income. But money is not a thing. Money is control over options. It's the ability to say no, the ability to leave, the ability to survive without permission. And any tool that grants those abilities will always attract moral propaganda. Because moral propaganda is how the powerless keep the powerful from being challenged. So they teach you a lie early: money doesn't matter. Just be a good person. Work hard and it will come. Greed is evil. Those sentences sound noble. They also keep you compliant. Because a man who believes money is not important is easy to govern. He will accept low pay. He will accept disrespect. He will accept delay. He will accept being used, because he's been trained to value comfort narratives over power. Machiavelli understood this before your school system existed. People obey whoever controls the resources, the rewards, the punishments, and the future. So the lens shift is simple and ruthless. Money is a permission slip. Without it, you need permission to live. With it, you become the one granting or denying permission. Now look at your own life through this lens. When you were broke, what happened? You tolerated more. You explained yourself more. You stayed in places you hated. You accepted jokes you shouldn't have accepted. You maintained relationships that were obviously one-sided. Not because you're weak, because you were trapped. Poverty doesn't just limit your lifestyle. It limits your spine. It forces negotiation where a sovereign would simply exit. That's why money is a hierarchy weapon. It turns choices into commands. A boss becomes a ruler because you need the paycheck. A toxic friend becomes powerful because you need belonging. A manipulative partner becomes the judge because you need stability. A bank becomes your owner because you need the loan. Most people will never connect the dots. They'll keep saying, "I just need to earn more." No, you need to understand the actual battlefield. Money is not primarily for buying things. It's for buying time, silence, distance, and freedom of movement. If you use money mainly to buy lifestyle, you stay a servant with nicer furniture. That's the moral inversion nobody wants to hear. The poor often spend money to look powerful. The powerful use money to be untouchable. One buys status symbols. The other buys leverage. And leverage is what controls humans, because humans are predictable. They respect what can leave, what can punish, what can reward, what can outlast. So when you hear money is just a tool, understand the subtext. Tools decide outcomes. Tools decide winners. Tools decide who gets to speak and who gets ignored. The average person is disgusted by money talk not because they're pure, but because their identity can't survive the truth. They want to believe the world is fair. If the world is fair, then their suffering is meaningful. If the world is fair, then their loyalty will be repaid. If the world is fair, then being good is enough. But money exposes the real structure. The world rewards position, not intention. This is meant to break your moral fog and replace it with a strategist's vision. Money is not about comfort, it's about command. Money is not about buying, it's about exit power. Money is not about working hard, it's about owning what others must use. Once you accept that, you stop acting like a worker trying to be rewarded. You start acting like an operator building a position. That's the lens. And now that the lens is installed, we can dissect the mechanism. Why most people stay trapped in transactions while rulers think in systems. Most people don't have a money problem. They have a control problem, and they keep treating it like an income problem. Here's the mechanism that traps them. They live inside transactions. A transaction mindset asks, how much do I make this month? What can I buy? How do I pay this bill? What's the safest option? It's survival math, necessary at first, but deadly if you never evolve past it. Because transactions keep you focused on today's relief instead of tomorrow's leverage. The powerful think differently, not because they're smarter. Because they're playing a different game, they think in control systems. A control mindset asks, what do I own that produces cash without my body? What can I build once that pays repeatedly? What gives me negotiation power? What reduces my dependency on any single person? That's the split. Dependency versus sovereignty. When you're dependent, you accept terms. When you're sovereign, you set terms. And money is how sovereignty is built, because money buys time, and time buys strategy. Now understand the engine underneath all of this. When you're under financial pressure, your mind narrows. You become short-term, reactive. You chase relief like a thirsty man chasing water. That's why the transaction mindset feels practical. It is practical if your house is on fire. But if your house is always on fire, you never build. You only extinguish. So the poor become experts at emergency behavior, juggling payments, chasing overtime, switching jobs for small raises, buying tiny comforts to survive stress, and every one of those decisions feels justified. But it keeps them in a cage. All effort, no position. The powerful understand this and exploit it, not with conspiracy, with structure. They design systems where you trade your time for their control. Most people sell the only thing they truly own, their hours. They think money is the prize. It isn't. Money is the receipt you get for surrendering your time to someone else's system. That's why the powerful chase ownership. Ownership doesn't mean being rich. It means having something that produces value without requiring you to show up like a soldier every morning. The poor chase paychecks. The powerful chase cash flow with leverage. Cash flow is oxygen. Leverage is dominance. Here's the part nobody likes admitting. Consumer culture is a sedation machine. You're stressed, you buy. You feel behind, you buy. You feel invisible, you buy. Consumption becomes emotional regulation. And once money becomes your pacifier, you will never accumulate it long enough to turn it into power. This is the moral inversion. Most people use money to feel powerful for a moment. The powerful use money to be powerful for years. One buys dopamine, the other buys position. The transaction mind fears risk because risk threatens survival. So they choose safe paths. One income stream, one employer, one skill, one identity. I'm a good worker, but safe is often the most dangerous strategy long term because it creates a single point of failure. The powerful spread risk through multiple income streams, ownership, stakes, skills that transfer, assets that appreciate, relationships built on value, not need. They don't avoid risk. They control it. They take calculated risk when upside is asymmetric. The poor avoid risk until inflation, layoffs, debt, and time take everything anyway. This is the hidden mechanism. Most people choose jobs, spending, and lifestyles to stay socially acceptable. They want to look stable, normal, responsible. They buy chains and call them security. The powerful don't worship social approval. They worship optionality. They build the ability to walk away. Because the ultimate money power isn't luxury. It's exit. Exit from a job. Exit from a relationship. Exit from a city. Exit from humiliation. Exit from dependence. So now you see why most people will never understand money. They think money is for comfort. Money is for control. They think money is earned. Money is positioned. They think money is numbers. Money is leverage over time, people, and outcomes. That's the mechanism. Next, we name the archetypes, so you can see exactly which financial personality is running your life and which ones are quietly feeding on you. Most men don't make financial decisions. They obey a financial identity. That identity was built from shame, fear, and imitation. then reinforced by a society that profits when you stay predictable. So we're going to name the archetypes, not to entertain you, so you can diagnose yourself without excuses. Because if you don't know which archetype runs you, you'll keep calling your habits personality, while they quietly build your prison. The spender uses money to numb stress and buy momentary dominance. He feels pressure, he spends. He feels invisible, he spends. He feels behind, he spends. He doesn't purchase objects. He purchases emotional anesthesia. The spender's mindset is, life is hard, I deserve something. That sentence sounds harmless. It's a leash, because every time he spends for relief, he extends his dependence. He becomes easier to control by debt, by work, by mood. He mistakes lifestyle for power. And the world rewards him with one thing: more bills. Buys status, panics at savings, hates numbers, lives for the weekend. The saver looks disciplined, but often it's fear disguised as control. He hoards money because he's terrified of loss, betrayal, humiliation. He keeps cash like a bunker. But here's the trap. If your saving doesn't convert into leverage, it becomes stagnation. You're not building position, you're building anxiety insurance. The saver's mindset is, if I hold enough, I'll finally feel safe. He won't. Because safety isn't a number. Safety is optionality, and optionality requires movement, skills, assets, ownership, social power. Fear hoarding without strategy creates a man who is financially responsible and still powerless. Tell, obsessed with security, avoids calculated risk, feels proud of not spending, but has no system growing. This archetype is the most common and the most pathetic because it's socially rewarded. The performer spends money to look like he's winning, even if he's bleeding. He buys the car to be seen. He buys the outfit to be respected. He buys the lifestyle to avoid shame. His real currency isn't money. It's other people's perception. And because he worships perception, he becomes a perfect servant to trends, influencers, and social pressure. His budget isn't controlled by strategy. It's controlled by the crowd. The performer doesn't build wealth. He builds a costume. Lives above means, needs external validation, hates being average, makes choices to impress people who don't care. This is the rare archetype. This is the one that wins. The builder treats money like a soldier treats ammunition, only used to gain advantage. He buys time. He buys skills. He buys tools that produce. He invests in systems. The builder's mindset is, every dollar must return with reinforcements. He doesn't romanticize struggle. He doesn't waste money on appearing powerful. He builds quiet leverage until he can walk away from bad deals, bad people, bad environments. The builder is patient but not passive. He plays long but acts fast when opportunity appears. Tell, tracks numbers, thinks in systems, reinvests, reduces dependency, builds multiple levers, not one job. This archetype understands money better than everyone else because he understands humans. The predator doesn't chase money through labor. He gets money through control, extraction, and positioning. He profits from other people's weakness. Their desire for comfort, their lack of discipline, their need for approval, their financial ignorance. Predators appear as lenders, manipulators, fake mentors, exploitative employers, scammers, status gatekeepers. Not all predators are criminals. Many are respected. Their skill is simple. They find people who think in transactions and they bind them with contracts, debt, subscriptions, or emotional obligations. Tell, always wins the deal, speaks in persuasion, uses pressure, plays on shame and urgency. Now here's the cold reality. You are not one archetype forever. Most men rotate between spender and performer when they're stressed, then pretend they're saving to recover, then get lured again. The goal is not to become a saint. The goal is to become an operator. So ask yourself the only question that matters: which archetype is feeding right now? Because the moment you see it, the game changes. Next, we go deeper into the threat, how society engineers these archetypes, why financial ignorance is profitable, and how debt, shame, and narrative keep men obedient. Financial ignorance isn't an accident. It's a control layer. The system doesn't need you broke, it needs you dependent. Broke men are chaotic. Dependent men are obedient. Dependence is predictable. Predictable men can be priced, scheduled, and managed. So the real threat isn't bad budgeting. The real threat is the invisible cage built from three materials: debt, shame, and narrative. Debt gets marketed as opportunity: build credit, buy now, invest in yourself. Sometimes it is, but for most people, it's a leash with a smile. Because debt has one function in hierarchy: it turns your future labor into someone else's property. Once you owe, you can't walk away easily. You can't offend the boss. You can't take risks. You can't leave the city. You can't exit a relationship cleanly. Your decisions become defensive. Debt doesn't just take your money, it takes your options. And options are the real currency of power. That's why people who understand money fear one thing more than failure: being trapped. Shame is the psychological weapon that keeps men compliant. If you're struggling, you hide it. If you're ignorant, you pretend you understand. If you're broke, you perform normal. The system loves that, because shame prevents learning and ignorance keeps you paying. A man ashamed of his financial position will avoid looking at numbers, avoid asking questions, avoid admitting mistakes, avoid taking control. He will keep buying comfort and calling it deserved, because the truth feels heavier than the debt. Shame is not morality. Shame is governance. The moment you feel ashamed, you become easy to manipulate with status and approval. You will pay to feel respectable. You will accept bad deals to avoid looking weak. You will stay in cages to avoid embarrassment. This is the most poisonous story ever sold to men. Work hard, be loyal, stay stable, don't be greedy, respect the rules. That narrative creates the perfect employee: productive, grateful, and afraid to negotiate. It also creates the perfect consumer: spending to cope, borrowing to survive, obeying to keep a paycheck. Here's the Machiavellian inversion. The system praises the good worker because the good worker doesn't threaten ownership. He doesn't ask for equity. He doesn't build leverage. He doesn't exit. He waits for permission, and permission is always expensive. Most education trains compliance. Show up, follow instructions, memorize, be graded, seek approval. It doesn't train ownership: positioning, negotiation, risk control, cash flow logic, deal-making, or systems thinking. Why? Because operators can't be easily staffed. They don't tolerate low leverage. They don't accept nonsense rules. They don't sell decades for a title. So people graduate skilled at being hired and financially illiterate about the structures that hire them. This isn't a conspiracy. It's incentive design. Institutions optimize for stability. Stability requires predictable citizens. Predictable citizens don't need leverage education, they need obedience education. The final layer is biological. Comfort pacifies men. It makes them trade sovereignty for convenience. It makes them tolerate bad deals because it's not that bad. This is why most people will never understand money. Understanding money requires discomfort, tracking, delaying gratification, cutting social signaling, making choices that look boring to the crowd. Most men would rather look rich than become free, so they stay in the cycle. Earn, spend, borrow, cope, repeat, and then they call the trap life. The deep threat in one sentence: financial illiteracy isn't just ignorance, it's a manufactured vulnerability. It keeps you dependent on wages, loyal to systems that exploit you, ashamed to ask the right questions, addicted to consumption, afraid to take controlled risks. That is how men are domesticated. Without chains, without prisons, without violence. Just contracts, comfort, and shame. Next, we shift from diagnosis to warfare: how to convert money into leverage, stop funding your own cage, and build exit power like a strategist. If you use money to buy comfort, you will stay controllable. That's the whole game. The system doesn't fear a man with a nice car. It fears a man with exit power, a man who can walk away from exploitation without begging, without panic, without permission. So your strategic shift is simple. Every dollar must either buy leverage or it buys your cage. Lifestyle spending feels like winning. Leverage spending is winning. Here's how you convert money into leverage like an operator. Status spending is the most common financial self-harm among men. It looks like rewarding yourself, but it's really a submission ritual to the crowd. You buy what signals power because you don't yet possess power. That's the inversion. The poorer you feel internally, the louder your spending gets externally. An operator cuts that addiction brutally. No purchases to impress, no upgrades driven by insecurity, no, I deserve this. Spending after stress because I deserve this is how chains are sold. You don't need to look expensive. You need to become ungovernable. Money's first job is not pleasure. It's time. Because time is what lets you build skills, search opportunities, negotiate from strength, and survive transition without desperation. A man who lives paycheck to paycheck can't strategize. He can only react. So your first leverage purchase is a buffer, enough runway to make decisions without fear. Not luxury, not comfort. Runway. Runway turns you from prey into a player. Transactions keep you trapped. Assets break the trap. An asset is anything that produces value repeatedly without requiring your daily obedience. That can be ownership, stakes, a product, a skill that pays repeatedly, a system that produces leads/sales tools that multiply output. The exact vehicle doesn't matter as much as the direction. From labor to leverage. Most men never get rich because every raise becomes a lifestyle upgrade. They expand their cage with nicer paint. An operator treats raises like ammunition, redirected into ownership. One income stream is not stable. It's a single point of failure. Stability is not a job. Stability is redundancy. Multiple ways money can enter your life, so no one gatekeeper can own you. When a boss, client, or platform can cut you off and collapse your life, you are not free. You are rented. So the strategic response is to build parallel lanes. A second skill, a side income, a small asset, a scalable system, not because you're hustling, because you're removing leverage from others. Operators don't feel their way through money. They use policy, laws like a constitution. Savings is automatic. Investment is automatic. Bills are scheduled. Spending is limited by rules, not moods, because moods are exploitable. Policies are not. If your money system depends on motivation, you will fail. Motivation is a weak man's fuel, temporary, emotional, unreliable. A sovereign uses structure. Poor men either play safe forever or gamble stupidly. Both are ignorance. Asymmetric bets are controlled risks where the downside is survivable and the upside is meaningful. That means you don't risk your survival, you risk comfort, you risk ego, you risk being misunderstood by average people because average people protect comfort. Operators protect outcomes. All of this collapses into one power. No. No to bad deals. No to disrespect. No to wasting time. No to loyalty traps. No to being guilted into spending. A man who can say no becomes unbuyable. And that is what money is for, to make you unbuyable. So it installs a new operating system. Stop buying lifestyle to numb insecurity. Buy time. Build runway. Convert income into ownership. Create redundancy. Use policy, not mood. Take controlled risks. Build the ability to say no. Next is the final surgery, identity death. Because the good worker inside you will sabotage everything. He's addicted to safety and approval. The reason you stay financially weak isn't lack of information. It's identity. There's a version of you that the system built on purpose, the good worker. He's reliable, grateful, morally clean, and terrified of looking selfish. He believes obedience is virtue and stability is safety. That man is profitable for employers, for lenders, for marketers, for anyone selling comfort. Because a good worker doesn't demand leverage, he asks for permission. So if you want money power, that identity has to die. Not improved, not motivated, executed. Listen to these carefully. If any of these feel like you've been domesticated. Hard work always gets rewarded. If I stay loyal, they'll take care of me. Fair play matters more than strategy. Talking about money is greedy. I just want stability. I don't want to take risks. Those beliefs sound moral. They also create a man who never owns anything and never escapes. Because the world doesn't reward effort, it rewards position. A good worker sells effort. An operator builds position. Loyalty is sacred only when it's mutual and backed by power. Most loyalty in modern life is one way. You give time, obedience, and emotional labor. They give you a paycheck and replace you the moment it's convenient. And you call that stability. That is a trap. An operator doesn't pledge loyalty to systems. He pledges loyalty to outcomes, sovereignty, optionality, independence. He doesn't ask, will they like me? He asks, does this increase my leverage? If not, it's a dead path. The good worker worships comfort. Comfort is his religion. He wants low stress, predictable routine, approval, and a life where no one judges him. But comfort is how men are controlled. Comfort makes you negotiable. Comfort makes you accept humiliation for a paycheck. Comfort makes you choose safe misery over dangerous freedom. The operator chooses a different religion. He worships exit power. He builds the ability to leave any environment that tries to own him. That's not arrogance. That's self-governance. Step 3. Stop selling time. Start accumulating leverage. The good worker sells time and calls it responsibility. The operator uses time as a weapon. He invests time into things that compound, skills that increase bargaining power, systems that produce without daily presence, networks built on value, not need assets, not liabilities. He doesn't stay busy to feel productive. He stays focused to become dangerous. Busy men are controllable. Focused men become owners. This is where most men collapse. They want wealth without looking ruthless. They want power without being judged. They want to win while appearing harmless. That fantasy keeps you poor. Machiavelli's truth. People don't reward the man who is pure. They reward the man who is effective. This doesn't mean crime. It means realism. It means you stop letting social shame dictate your financial decisions. You stop avoiding negotiation because it feels rude. You stop avoiding money talk because it feels greedy. You stop refusing to charge what you're worth because you want to look humble. Humble men get used. The operator doesn't ask, is this fair? He asks, what's the leverage here? What's the downside? What's the upside? What's the dependency risk? Who benefits if I stay ignorant? Calculation replaces emotion. Not because you become cold for fun, because emotion is exploitable. The replacement identity. The operator, this is the man you become. He builds redundancy so no one owns him. He negotiates without guilt. He invests in compounding systems. He cuts status spending like disease. He values freedom over appearances. He treats money as control, not comfort. When that identity is installed, your behavior becomes automatic. You stop making financial choices from fear and start making them from position. Now we end with the final warning, because most men will hear this, nod, then run back to comfort and call it balance. Balance is how you stay governed. Here's the part that will offend average men. Your morality is often just fear with better branding. Fear of judgment, fear of confrontation, fear of risk, fear of looking selfish, fear of being called greedy. And that fear is exactly how you remain financially controllable, because the system doesn't need to arrest you. It just needs to shame you into obedience. So it gives you a script. Be humble, be grateful, don't talk about money, don't negotiate too hard, don't be ambitious, don't step on toes. That script creates a man who works forever and owns nothing, a man who calls suffering honor and calls comfort stability. and then he dies with a resume instead of a position. Machiavellian reality is colder. The world rewards effectiveness, not purity. The world respects leverage, not intentions. The world listens to the man who can walk away. So if you insist on staying morally clean in the way society defines it, harmless, agreeable, non-threatening, you will stay underpaid, overworked, and easily replaced. Because harmless men are cheap. The three chains that keep you poor, you believe the best man wins. He doesn't. The best positioned man wins. Fairness is a story told to keep you from learning strategy. You keep playing by rules other people break quietly through networks, negotiation, ownership, and asymmetry. They don't beat you by working harder. They beat you by controlling the field. You want to be seen as a good person more than you want to be free. So you avoid charging what you're worth. You avoid asking for equity. You avoid negotiating. You avoid taking opportunities that might make people resent you. You stay likable, and you stay poor. Approval is the cheapest drug with the highest cost. Comfort is the cage that feels like home. You tell yourself you want peace, but peace without power is just quiet slavery. It's being calm while someone else decides your future. Comfort makes you stay in jobs you hate, relationships that drain you, cities that shrink you, routines that numb you. Because discomfort feels like danger. But discomfort is where leverage is built. What powerful men do that good men refuse to do, they negotiate without guilt. They protect their time like territory. They cut off emotional spending. They build assets instead of appearances. They accept being misunderstood. They prioritize ownership over praise. They don't apologize for wanting control over their life. They understand if you don't control resources, someone else will control you. That's not negativity. That's human nature. The final diagnostic test, if this video triggers you, if you feel defensive, offended, that's too harsh. That reaction is the proof. It means you still want to be a safe man. Safe men get used. Now let's make the outcome unavoidable. You will either learn money as leverage and become sovereign, or keep worshipping moral comfort and remain governable. There is no third option. If you want to stop being financially domesticated, you don't need inspiration. You need a decision. This week, do one act that proves you're not a good worker anymore. Cut one status expense that exists only for ego. Start building a second income stream, even if it's small. Negotiate one term you've been scared to negotiate. Track every dollar for 7 days like you're hunting a leak in your ship. Put money into an asset instead of a dopamine purchase. Then comment one word, operator, not for community, not for motivation. As a public contract with yourself, you will stop being managed by comfort, shame, and narratives, and start building position like a Machiavellian strategist. Because in the end, money is simple. If you don't own leverage, you will be owned.